Now, this is the video that I was talking about, the man in crisis. We are going to get into it. This one is a little bit deep, so it's important we pay attention. Y'all ready? You ready, panel? All right, here we go.
First is to have a conversation that this is a group that's struggling and to stop using terms like accountability and somehow blaming them for their own problems here. The 19-year-old male should not pay for the sins of his father or grandfather. Now, and my Yoda on this is Richard Reeves, but basically it comes down to kind of three things. The first is biological. Our prefrontal cortex does not mature as fast as a woman's. An 18-year-old woman, from an executive function standpoint, is like a 20-year-old male. So, or put another way, two seniors in high school applying to college, the woman is essentially competing against a 16-year-old. And that is her prefrontal cortex had that executive function that he has. She had it at 16. So we're seeing double the number of women graduating from U.S. colleges as men because it's 60-40 ratio when they start, and then the ratio only gets worse because more men drop out. That still is an incredible on-ramp to influence and economic security, and these men aren't getting on that on-ramp. So there's biological reasons. There's also, I think the education system is just biased against men. A boy is twice as likely on a risk-adjusted basis or a behavior-adjusted basis to be suspended for the exact same activity as a girl who's brought into the principal's office for this exact same infraction. You're sitting in front of me as a guy, you're twice as likely to be suspended for cheating on your chemistry test as a girl coming in. A black boy is 5 times as likely to be suspended as a girl. So we have a real bias. Now, part of that is that 90% of primary school teachers are women. There are more female fighter pilots per capita than there are male kindergarten teachers. Men are not going into early stage education. And this is really important because you have an entire cohort of boys who grow up. If you were to point to a single point of failure where all of this starts, if you said, where did this young man come off the tracks? If you tried to identify one signal through all the noise, it would be the following. When the boy no longer has a male role model. And with incarceration, with male abandonment, and with a lack of teachers in primary school, you have an entire generation of young men who grow up having never had a male role model. And so a lack of male role models, an education system that is biased against them, and then I think economic policies, whether it's the outsourcing of manufacturing jobs, the transfer of wealth from young to old people, and you think, well, the fact that someone over the age of 70 is 72% wealthier than they were 40 years ago, and someone under the age of 40 is 24% less wealthy, that affects men and women. I think it's especially hard on men because I think men are still primarily evaluated in terms through the lens of their economic vitality. So they're biologically behind women, have an education system biased against them, and we have economic policies that have created a great deal of shame and rage. And the last point I would just say is for the first time in Europe and America's history, a 30-year-old is not doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. And that creates just tremendous shame and rage. I mean, look at the housing market. The average age of a first-time home buyer is 47 now. In 1980, the average age of a first-time home buyer was 29. Young people have been sequestered from whatever you call, loosely speaking, the American dream or the UK dream. So,
All right, men are in crisis. Men are in crisis. I'm gonna go ahead and start with you first, Chelsea. What are your thoughts about it? Seeing you nod your head.
I'm so glad you started with me. But I love the topics that he brought up, biological, in school, and being male teachers. It doesn't surprise me at all. Um, Women are inherently older in the brain than men are. It's scientifically proven that we age faster in the brain than men. So they are being left behind in that aspect, that they're not really achieving the same mental constructs as females are. And for them to be in school, to be 2 times, I think he said, more likely to be suspended than females, it just like goes to show the female like hierarchy that we are on. Like We are constantly being, I forgot what it's called, but as females, we are, passed on the street. We are giving so many passes. We are getting the pretty privilege. We are getting all these things because we are females that men can't do. I can go into somewhere and get a pass and say, oh, I don't know. And then men, they will be looked at differently just because they are a man. We are obviously, that makes sense to me. And then for males to not be teachers anymore, for them to be lower, to be a teacher in primary school, it makes sense to me because men, they like to be seen as strong and powerful, and that doesn't seem like a career choice they would choose because they don't want to. I don't think being a teacher is something they think to be strong. They choose jobs like construction engineer, those type of jobs where they can be seen as strong. And for him to say that because there is no male dad in the picture, males are abandoned, there's nobody to be that, patriarchy in their family, that makes sense to me. And I would say that, like, men now, they are seen to be so much ahead of females, but they are really just falling behind in the sense of they aren't emotionally intelligent as much as females are. They have a hard time expressing themselves, and they are becoming, sassy, as there's trying to say that there's a sassy man apocalypse going on, that they are fussing about their feelings, but they can't explain it at the same time. It's like, oh, I'm going to shut down on you, but I can't explain how I'm feeling during this time. So it just makes sense to me. I'm not surprised at all.
All right. Go ahead, Paradise.
You see me nod my head to this video, did you? Everything he said was pretty much spot on. I think that we're looking at it from a infantilized and pedestalized obsession. Like, there will always be some form of coddleship for women in society. And then it's a imputed bias when you have women in dominated fields that work directly with children. And then what we don't realize is a lot of times it's hard for women to code switch. It's hard for women to come into a workplace and not already feel the way that they feel about people. About 70% of people don't leave their community. So a lot of times the teachers already know your family. They probably already know your dad. They already have an idea, maybe have interacted with your dad at some point. So you seeing this male child and you watching this male child do whatever, or you just seeing a child who is having behavior issues. And it's so much more easier for women to go and give girls, a little bit of empathy because we are, one of the same. And it's very dismissive for boys because a lot of times we idealize that men, even in little boy phases, should already be adults. We see it, and the study has been done with predominantly white women in the American school system. They start feeling like little boys are actually adults around, black little boys are actually adults around 14. So when we're talking about men's behavior and their actual emotional intelligence and all of these other things, they're not in a crisis because they're acting sassy. It's no such thing. You can't ask for men to be emotionally intelligent, and then when they express themselves to you, you don't like how they express themselves, and so you default to where he's acting sassy because he didn't respond the way that you felt like a man should respond. And then even when we talk about women being a little bit older, women being advanced, this, that, and the third, of course, that is something that is biologically proven, but it's not that much of a bigger gap. And I think we try to make it seem like it's just a huge grip in between women going to go be this amazing individual who's very smart, very intelligent, and men are not. But then we're constantly defaulting back, well, she's young, she didn't know any better, she just has to live and she learn, and maybe she just needs time, but you shouldn't talk to her. Like, it's always a constant coddleship with women. She could be a 21-year-old knowing exactly what she's doing, making all her decisions, going to date a 35-year-old man, and people will tell her that the man is the problem for simply just being attracted to her, and she probably went and preyed on him. She probably went and DM'd him. And we have this innate ability to always see women as victims for some reason, even in situations where they're wrong. Or how we just saw, well, I just saw this white lady who went and helped the young black boy who was in jail escape. And she is in her 40s, and this kid is like 17, you know. And again, we don't look at how the dynamic of women have this control. Most women are in fields of social work. Most women are in fields of nursing. Most women are in fields of school teachers where they are dominating, not the primary field for women, but they dominate in those sectors where they have a direct interaction and they can control the narrative of what is happening to children. And then when you get to reflecting and seeing yourself in the individuals you interact and you engage with, the empathy is not pushed to the boy child more than it is pushed to the female child. So overall, this is harmful, right? Because we got a lot of women, again, even in conversations, we are impeding our own bias. Men should have this behavior. Men should behave like this. But it's a reason why, and I will always say this, Black men specifically have the highest suicide rate. When you sit there and you actually putting your biases or your prejudices on how you believe men should behave, you know, and you're attacking them with all of these trigger words, they're narcissists, they're manipulators, they're gaslighters, they're predators, you're finding every trigger word in order to make them the boogeyman. And then you want them to believe that you're their ally. You want them to believe that you have good intentions behind them. You're such this good woman. You're going to love them. You're going to give them everything as long as you get the best benefit. We got something to do, because the reality is, again, it starts as a child. And a lot of times these little Black boys, they get out into the streets, and when they lose a mentor, right, whether it's somebody who is passed or somebody that moved away, they become extremely susceptible to doing whatever, whenever, however, with whoever. And we just seen, as soon as Dr. Umar said, hey, it's on us as the men in the community to gather up and get with the other boys and make sure that they don't do that. The men said, nope, not my problem, find their dad. But you don't see that with women. If women feel like we can have an influence on other little girls, we know we make it our business to influence. Women will fight a mother tooth and nail just to have control of somebody else's child. So, I mean, that's the dynamic. We know it, and we see it again in music. We see it in everything. We see it in the influence of culture. We see it in sex. It's on you guys what you want to do with the information.